She's so fine. Hell of a hell of a blows my mind. Hell of a lights my day.
What's good, guys? This story came out yesterday. I want to thank my friend Marie722 for sending it to me. It's coming via the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but it's actually an article from the Associated Press. Quote, I'm scared. Associated Press obtains video of fatal arrest of black man. Louisiana State troopers were captured on body camera video stunning, punching, and dragging a black man as he apologized for leading them on a high-speed chase. Footage of the man's last moments alive that the Associated Press obtained after authorities refused to release it for 2 years. Quote, I'm your brother. I'm scared. I'm scared. End quote. Ronald Greene can be heard telling the white troopers as the unarmed man is jolted repeatedly with a stun gun before he even gets out of his car along a dark, rural road. The 2019 arrest outside Monroe, Louisiana is the subject of a federal civil rights investigation. But unlike other in-custody deaths across the nation where body camera video was released almost immediately, Greene's case has been shrouded in secrecy and accusations of a cover-up. Louisiana officials have rebuffed repeated calls to release footage and details about what caused the 49-year-old's death. Troopers initially told Greene's family he died on impact after crashing into a tree during the chase. Later, state police released a one-page statement acknowledging only that Greene struggled with troopers and died on his way to the hospital. Only now, in the footage obtained by the Associated Press from one trooper's body camera, can the public see for the first time some of what happened during the arrest. The 46-minute clip shows one trooper wrestling Greene to the ground, putting him in a chokehold and punching him in the face, while another can be heard calling him, quote, a stupid motherfucker, end quote. Greene wails, quote, I'm sorry, end quote, as another trooper delivers another stun gun shot to his backside and warns, quote, look, you're going to get it again if you don't put your effing hands behind your back, end quote. Another trooper can be seen briefly dragging the man face down after his legs have been shackled and his hands cuffed behind him. Instead of rendering aid, the troopers leave the burly man unattended, face down, and moaning for more than 9 minutes as they use sanitizer wipes to wash blood off their hands and faces. Quote, I hope this guy ain't got effing AIDS, end quote, one of the troopers can be heard saying. After a several-minute stretch in which Greene is not seen on camera, he appears again, limp, unresponsive, and bleeding from his head and face. He is then loaded onto an ambulance gurney, his arm cuffed to the bed rail.
I'm scared. I'm just scared. I'm scared.
Mr. Greene was, to some degree, even though he had just finished leading police officers on a lengthy and a high-speed chase, his inclination at that particular point was to acquiesce to what the officers wanted.
Let me see your hands. Put your hands behind your back, bitch. Give me your fucking hands. Put your hands behind your back. Taser. Put your hands behind your back. Behind your back. You're about to get it again if you don't put your fucking hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. I'm sorry.
What's problematic for me is that Mr. Greene is now left on the ground, on his stomach, handcuffed in a prone position. And officers are trained throughout the United States that once there's a struggle of this nature, and the individual's handcuffed, that you need to push him off onto his side or get him in a sitting position so you can allow that breathing to be unimpeded by his own body weight.
Blood all over. This guy ain't got fucking AIDS.
And that didn't happen for at least, based on my calculation, 9 minutes, where Mr. Greene was left alone. And then when he wasn't left alone and he tried to get over onto his side, another trooper pushed him down using his foot against the lower back and buttocks of Mr. Greene. And I didn't understand that. There was absolutely no reason for that. Under no circumstances should Mr. Greene have been drugged by his ankle shackles. That was malicious, sadistic, completely unnecessary. And the officer that did it's going to have to be held accountable.
In many parts of the video, Greene is not on screen, and the trooper appears to cut the microphone off about halfway through, making it difficult to piece together exactly what was happening at the time. At least 6 troopers were on the scene at the time of the arrest, but not all had their body cameras on. Quote, "They murdered him. It was set out. It was planned," Greene's mother, Mona Hardin, said Wednesday. "He didn't have a chance. Ronnie didn't have a chance. He wasn't going to live to tell about it," end quote. An attorney for Greene's family, Lee Merritt, said the footage, quote, had some of the same hallmarks of the George Floyd video. The length of it, the sheer brutality of it. "He's apologized in an attempt to surrender," end quote, Merritt said. Louisiana State Police declined to comment on the contents of the video. In a statement, the agency said the, quote, premature public release of investigative files and video evidence, in this case, is not authorized and undermines the investigative process and compromises the fair and impartial outcome, end quote. State Police brass initially argued the troopers' use of force was justified, quote, awful but lawful, end quote, as ranking officials described it, and did not open an administrative investigation until 474 days after Greene's death. Quote, "Police departments have got to stop putting roadblocks up to information that is, in the public's eye, questionable. They have to reveal all that they know when they know it," said Andrew Scott, a former Boca Raton, Florida police chief who testifies as an expert witness in use of force cases. "It suggests that you're hiding something," end quote. While noting Greene, quote, was not without fault, end quote, and appeared to resist the troopers' orders, Scott said dragging the handcuffed man face down by his ankle shackles was, quote, malicious, sadistic, completely unnecessary, end quote. Quote, "That should have never, ever happened," he said. "You've got the guy completely compromised. He's not hurting anybody," end quote. Charles Key, another use of force expert and former Baltimore police lieutenant, questioned the troopers' decision to leave Greene unattended, handcuffed and prone for several minutes, calling the practice, quote, just dead wrong, end quote. Quote, "You don't leave somebody lying on the ground, particularly after you've had this fight. The training has been for a number of years that as soon as you get someone under control, you put them on their side to facilitate their breathing. And particularly this guy, because he was very heavy," Key said. Governor John Bel Edwards allowed Greene's family to view the same body camera footage last year and pledged to release it to the public after the federal investigation runs its course. Greene's family has filed a federal wrongful death lawsuit alleging troopers, quote, brutalized, end quote, Greene, and, quote, left him beaten, bloodied, and in cardiac arrest, end quote, before covering up the cause of death. His family has released graphic photographs of Greene's body on a gurney, showing deep bruises and cuts on his face and head. Greene, a barber, failed to pull over for an unspecified traffic violation shortly after midnight on May the 10th, 2019, about 30 miles south of the Arkansas state line. That's where the video obtained by AP begins, with Trooper Dakota DeMoss chasing Greene's SUV on rural highways at over 115 miles per hour. Seconds before the chase ended, DeMoss warned on his radio, quote, "We've got to do something. He's going to kill somebody," end quote. As DeMoss and Master Trooper Chris Hollingsworth rush Greene's SUV, he can be seen appearing to raise his hands and saying over and over, quote, okay, I'm sorry," end quote. Hollingsworth shocks Greene with a stun gun within seconds through the driver's side window as both troopers demand he get out of the vehicle. Greene exits through the passenger side as the troopers wrestle him to the ground. One trooper can be heard saying, quote, "He's grabbing me," as they try to handcuff him. Quote, "Put your hands behind your back, bitch," end quote, one trooper says. Hollingsworth strikes Greene multiple times and appears to lie on one of his arms before he is finally handcuffed. At one point, Trooper Corey York yanks Greene's leg shackles and briefly drags the man on his stomach, even though he isn't resisting. York was suspended without pay for 50 hours for the dragging and for improperly deactivating his body camera. York told investigators the device was beeping loudly and his, quote, mind was on other things, end quote. Hollingsworth, in a separate recording obtained by the AP, can be heard telling a colleague at the office that, quote, he beat the ever-living F out of, quote, end quote, Greene. Quote, choked him and everything else trying to get him under control, Hollingsworth is heard saying. He was spitting blood everywhere, and all of a sudden he just went limp, end quote. Hollingsworth later died in a single vehicle crash that happened hours after he learned he would be fired for his role in the Greene case. DeMoss, meanwhile, was arrested in connection with a separate police pursuit last year, in which he and 2 other troopers allegedly used excessive force while handcuffing a motorist. Exactly what caused Greene's death remains unclear. Union Parish Coroner Renee Smith told the AP last year his death was ruled accidental and attributed to cardiac arrest. Smith, who was not in the office when that determination was made, said her office's file on Greene attributed his death to a car crash and made no mention of a struggle with state police. The Associated Press last year also obtained a medical report showing an emergency room doctor noted Greene arrived dead at the hospital, bruised and bloodied, with 2 stun gun prongs in his back. That led the doctor to question Trooper's initial account that Greene had, quote, died on impact, end quote, after crashing into a tree. Quote, does not add up, end quote, the doctor wrote. So, it really sickens me. Most of you know my degrees in criminal justice with the law enforcement option. Well, that's one of the very first things that we were taught. When you have someone handcuffed face down on the ground, you roll them either on their side or put them in another position that doesn't hinder their breathing. Like, that's day 101 law enforcement. That sickens me. Also, to see him step on him again and try to get him down after he was trying to get situated so he could breathe sickens me. The fact that the Louisiana State Police are mad because the Associated Press released this video to the public sickens me. That's all you're worried about? You're not worried about Ronald Greene's life and how you all lied and said he died and hit a tree during a car crash? You're not upset at the fact that your troopers acted a fool? I'm all over this. This case just, it just reeks of cover-up. So I will keep you updated on this case as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great night.